this one I'm not going to cut all the way over to the sides because it looks like that might make it a little too harsh. So I'm going to leave this little bit in here for a little bit of side camouflage. If I pull that out, it's just going to make the bangs look too wide and it's going to look really funky. So I'm actually going to clip a little bit of that back that I had accidentally pulled out. You can always cut more later, there's just no going back. So. Once we get this cut, there's one more step. Now, if you were to leave these bangs just like this, you'd have a very, very blocky, blunt, unnatural line. People's hair in the front is normally not this thick and it's not this perfect. And what it ended up doing is actually looking really fake. So we want to eliminate that. And the way that we're going to do that is we're just going to thin it out a little bit into a little bit of layers. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these bangs that we just put in and we're just going to separate the top layer from this bottom layer. I'm going to comb this straight up. And from here you can kind of cut off any smaller hairs that you missed while you were cutting in the basic shape. And we're just going to switch over to our thinning shears. And we're going to take the thinning shears and we're going to notch in about maybe an inch down depending on the length of your hair, maybe a ½ inch. But we're just going to take off a couple passes. Okay, so that's getting there. Now we're going to take that hair that we just cut and we're going to clip it out of the way. And then we're going to go back and do this lower section. Don't want to overdo the lower section. The lower section is what creates your line. Again, trimming off those hairs. And you need to hold them kind of straight back because when they fall down, they're going to look different. This one I'm just going to do the very ends. And over here. And it straight up like that. I'm just going to do the very ends. Like that. So then, when we put it down, it's not going to give you, it's still going to give you a very crisp line, it's just not going to be heavy and harsh. So now, it's going to look a lot more natural. So now we're just going to clean up any additional hairs. There's your finished bangs. Now when these have a slight bend in them, they'll look very pin-up-y, very cute. Another easy wig modification is to slightly change the color by adding another color to your wigs. To this wig, we're going to add some platinum highlights so that it will make the wig look a little more funky, a little more layered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, which is weaving hair or a track hair or a wefted hair, and I'm going to just sew it into the already present wig tracks. This is really, really simple, and it's an awesome way to make a quick change. So I'm basically, for this wig, I'm going to sew in one piece that goes around the back and then two side pieces, one on each side of the center part. Now you need to sew in extra color around the front because the hair is going to be much heavier here to frame the face than it will be around the back. So you'll need to get them higher towards that center part. This hair up here doesn't fall backwards, so this part back here will be much more visible than the parts up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a line on our wig from where it already has this nice wig stitching here. And we're just going to follow it around. Now, one thing to check though, before you get too far, is make sure that your wig's not too thin. So put your finger under there and pull that hair over it. If you can see your finger, you'll need to move that track down or put a track of the same color of the wig up higher to make it thicker. So we're just going to follow this one around because I couldn't see my finger, so I know that we're not going to see the top of that track. Now this blonde's going to be pretty visible if it was too high up. So just going to keep following it all the way around. All I'm doing at this point is just pulling all of that hair up out of my way. This is a pretty standard construction for a wig. Several thin pieces of hair going around the back, and then other bracing pieces going straight down. Like that. So then we're going to take this track. Now it's really important that at this point, if you're trying to get a symmetrical look, that you center it. Make sure your wig's on straight first. I'm just going to plop my clip in right there so that I know that that's where it needs to be. And I'm just using a standard needle and thread. You don't need anything fancy. You don't need anything heavy duty, just a general all-purpose thread. And honestly, for this one, I'm not even using the same color because it's just going to be a quick change up for me. And I'm just wrapping it right around that top track. Right on to that pre-existing line. And I started maybe a few millimeters back, and I'm working my way towards the front. And then I'm going to work my way back over that part. And what that does is it makes it so that my knot is not right at the very front and puts my stitching knot back here, and that way it'll make it a little more flat. It's not necessarily that big of a deal with wigs, but it's the same technique I use when I'm doing a sewn installation for hair. It's just a good idea. It's just a little bit more clean than it might otherwise be. Now these stitches, I'm taking about 1 centimeter apart. They don't need to be super close, but you don't want them super far away either. Make sure that when you thread your needle that you have left yourself enough thread to get all the way to the other end. It's another really important thing. It's better to have a little bit too much thread than not enough at all. Although if you have a lot, then you might get really annoying as well. But keeping it pretty decent length so that you have enough to tie off on at the end is really important.